Have you inherited a Burlington property that you don't want? Well, the biggest mistake most people make is rushing to list that property before understanding what they actually have, what it might cost them, and what's the smartest exit path. Because an inherited property can very quickly turn into a burden. A lot of people think inheriting a house should feel simple. You got the property, now you have an opportunity perhaps, and you get to sell it. Then you move on. But that is almost never how it feels in real life. In real life, homes often come with a lot of stress attached to them. And we've seen this play out many, many times with our clients. Sometimes the home needs work. Sometimes it's full of contents, crap that you didn't know people had, and just years of accumulated stuff. Sometimes family members are involved and not fully aligned. Sometimes the property has been ignored for a while, needs repairs, and sometimes the biggest issue is not the house at all. It's that you did not want this project dropped into your life right now at possibly the worst time. That's what makes inherited property decisions dangerous. People are, you're not just making a real estate decision, you're making an emotional relief decision. And a relief decision made quickly can get very expensive. So this is where a lot of people get burned. They think speed means rushing, but an inherited property, in those situations, rushing often leads to big mistakes that cost you a lot of money. Wrong timing, wrong preparation, wrong pricing, wrong sales strategy. Once that is in motion, it gets really hard to fix. So if I did inherit a Burlington property that I didn't want, the first thing I would do is figure out which kind of problem this really is. Because not every inherited property should be handled the exact same way. Every situation is different. Some inherited properties are really clean and easy. Some are outdated, but manageable. Some need a lot more work than you might have bargained for or you want to take on. And some are not really property problems at all. They're people problems or timeline problems or family decision problems, family dispute problems, or they're stress problems. And that really matters. That distinction matters because if you misdiagnose the problem, you're going to end up with the wrong solution. You can end up spending weeks, even months, doing things that do not improve the outcome at all. And it just takes up time and adds stress to your life. So let's say you have an inherited property and needs work. This is where a lot of people start to panic. You immediately think that you need to renovate it before selling. It's not always the case. Sometimes the right move is to sell completely as is. Sometimes it's do a little light cleanup and do a strategic launch to the open market. And sometimes a few really smart improvements make a big difference. And maybe a full renovation is an option, but it's usually the worst possible place to start if you're already overwhelmed. Because now the house is not just an inherited property, it's a construction project, it's a budget decision, it's a time suck, it's another source of stress in your life. And that's how most people turn one little challenge into 5, 6, 7, 8 challenges, and then it snowballs. So here's the part that most people don't see coming, is the house starts costing you even while you're figuring it out. Utilities, insurance, taxes, maintenance, time, attention. Time and attention especially, those are big drains on your life. And if the property is vacant or it's neglected, that stress only compounds and it grows. So even though you don't want to rush in blindly, you also don't want to let things just drift on. Because when it starts to drift, that feels harmless, but it can start to add up and get very expensive fast. It starts to compound. So the smartest first move is to get clarity. It's not activity and start scrambling and putting things in motion. It's not that, it's clarity. What's the condition of the house? What kind of buyer are we going to be looking for to actually take on this house? How much work, if any, is actually worth doing? How quickly do we need this resolved or want this resolved? And what path matches that reality the best? Because there's more than one way to sell an inherited property. You might launch it properly and openly on the MLS. You might position it as an opportunity for buyers who want to buy into that upside and take on a project. You might choose a really fast, simple path because closure matters more than squeezing every last dollar. None of those are automatically right or wrong. Every situation is different. They're only right or wrong based on your actual situation. So one of the biggest mistakes sellers of inherited properties make is listening to random generic advice. Someone in their life, their lawyer, their friends, their partners, they tell them, you should just fix it up first. You got to fix it up first because you got to optimize the money in there. Someone else might say, just dump it, get rid of it. Someone might say, look, you're in Burlington. Buyers expect perfection. Some of that might be true depending on your neighborhood and the situation, but none of it means anything until someone with professional experience looks at the actual house, the situation, your timeline, the actual burden sitting on your plate right now, and does an assessment. That's where the strategy starts. Not with generic opinions or noise from your family, not with you panicking, but clarity over the situation. Because once that inherited property starts to feel like dead weight, people usually go one of two directions. They either freeze and avoid the decision, or you're going to rush and make the decision that gives emotional relief. And both of those can really cost you big. If you freeze, that just stretches out the burden and it compounds. But if you rush, you might leave money, time, or leverage on the table. So the right move is not emotional avoidance. It's not emotional urgency. It's making a clean decision and making the clean next best decision. But the good news is this: an inherited property in Burlington doesn't have to become a long, drawn-out mess. It doesn't have to turn into a renovation nightmare. It doesn't have to sit there draining your energy, draining your friends, family, everyone around you's energy while you wonder what to do. What it needs is the right first decision. Do you want speed? Do you want simplicity? Do you want to maximize the outcome with a bit of preparation? Or do you want it gone without turning it into a second job? Those are all real questions you should be considering. Because once those are answered, the path usually starts to get really clear. And clarity lowers stress quickly. It's not about random action. It's not about guessing. It's not trying to solve everything at once. It's just clarity on the next best move. So if you inherited a property in Burlington and you're not sure whether to clean it up, sell it as is, list it on the open MLS and do a big, long renovation and launch, or maybe just get it off your plate as fast as possible, that's exactly the decision to get right first. And we've made a link below available to you where you can talk with us about making this decision, and we'll help you figure out the next smartest step based on your home, your property, your timeline, and how quickly you want to get this challenge resolved.